Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this latest seminar session at StudyWorld Summer. And this is our last session of the day, so thank you to all of you for sticking with us this far and for joining other sessions and this one. If you haven't yet had the pleasure, my name is Tim Barker. I'm the Business Development Director here at English UK. We are the organisers of StudyWorld. Yeah, we welcome you all to the event if this is your first session. A big thank you at the beginning to our sponsors. We are aiming throughout this difficult situation to put on events that are affordable and accessible for as many people as possible to help to support their business in bouncing back after COVID-19. We couldn't do that without the support of sponsors. So it's a big thank you to the gold sponsors, British Council and Trinity College London, and to our silver sponsors, Ensley Insurance, Pearson and Centre of English Studies, CES. A big thank you to all of you. We do want these sessions to be interactive. There's a Q&A and a chat function. You could use the Q&A function. It makes it a little bit easier for me to put your difficult questions to the panel. We want challenge and I'm sure everyone's prepared for the most tricky questions you can come up with, so please do that. When you do so, please state your name and organization name. That'll just help us to sort of give a bit of context to your question. If the worst thing happens and my connection is lost, either because of some sort of internet outage or because I don't think things are going well and I just pretend that the internet connection is lost, then hang in there, come back, use the original link, and we'll see you back in here in the same room. This is a session on the future of teacher training, both in service courses and in courses for teachers to get into the profession, and we've got an amazing panel of experts across the section, which is really great, and I'm delighted to be joined by all of you. Thank you for giving up your time to share your experience with us. So our panel is made up of Mike Riley. Mike's the Deputy Director at Nile. We're joined by Silvana Richardson, many of you will know, Head of Teacher Development and Head of Education at Bell. By Eleanor Marley, who is Director of Education at International House, London. From Hungary, by Dr. Timea Tiboldi, who's the Director of Education of the Language Learning Directorate of Tempus Public Foundation. More on that in a second. And by Mark Hennebury, who's the State Specialist, Sector Specialist for ELT at the Department for International Trade. So thank you all for joining us. Before we jump into the main area of discussion for today, Timea, just give us, the audience and those listening, a little bit of an update on Tempus and the teacher training opportunity from Hungary.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to this session, and I have met some of you. Let me just tell you a few things about this in-service language teacher training program that our government intends to launch. And ideally, it was to start this summer, but we'll see what's going to happen because of the pandemic and the coronavirus situation. But in worst case scenario, it's going to be launched next year. From next year on. And what basically we are looking at and who the participants are, they are normally in-service language teachers from primary, secondary, and vocational schools. This program intends to approach teachers who teach English, German, French, Spanish, Italian, and Russian. Obviously, in this case, we can only talk about English. And what we are looking at and what we are planning to do is to have an accredited language training, which is for 120 hours, consists of 3 modules. In module 1, there will be 40 lessons of methodology. This is a basic foundation course. Then in module 2, we would like to send our teachers to the United Kingdom for 60 lessons of language development and methodology. And then in module C, there's going to be another 20 lessons, which is going to be a summary and adaptation of what have been learned and putting everything into practice. So what we are basically looking for, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and there might be some of you who are interested in our program, is a British Council accredited school who can offer 2-week courses which aim at language development and methodology, 65 minutes lessons for 60 hours, accommodation, bed and breakfast, cultural activities, and excursions. So this is mainly, or in a nutshell, this is our program. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to give you an overview. I will be here for 2 days and completely booked for those who are interested. So approach me, send me emails. Thank you very much. And I will be with you for the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Timea. Yeah, that's a good way to kick us off. And I think the completely booked nature of your schedule would suggest the demand, from centres is there for meeting this. What do you think? I'm going to come first of all to a school, so to Eleanor. What's been the effects of on demand for this in-service teacher training programs? What's happening through the pandemic, and what do you see as the sort of near future for this kind of program?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a brilliant program, and we're really welcome this in the UK. And with the loss of Erasmus, it's obviously going to leave a huge hole in the UK sector. And this kind of replacement for it is very welcome. I mean, in terms of demand throughout the last year, there has been a noticeable change in demand, particularly for, as you say, accredited courses online. And I certainly personally see that developing. We've seen a huge increase in the CELTA numbers as well as the Delta, and I think we're still kind of exploring online teacher training qualifications in terms of short courses and accrediting short courses. But in terms of the qualifications and accredited courses, that's certainly something that is we've seen increase over the last year.
Mm. And Silvana, I think the program that Timea has described there, this sort of we've got there's a program in Hungary first, then there's the in-person, there's a follow-up. Is that a model that you would like to see replicated in other areas? And what do those in-service teachers, those teachers in primary and secondary teaching English, what is it that they need, and how can the UK support that demand?
I'll answer that in two ways. First, the model. I think the model is a really good one. And when you look at the literature around what constitutes impactful professional development for teachers, i.e. that, what they learn, they are able to transfer to their practice, and that makes an impact to their own learners, that is exactly the kind of model we should be doing more of. So a little bit of flipped online or in country, followed by coming to an English-speaking country if possible, to have the sort of whole experience, but also a follow-up going back to their own context online, where teachers are supported after the experience in the difficult process of transferability to practice, because a lot of training and development courses that we develop here in the UK doesn't have that follow-up element, which is so important. So we train people, they are able to see courses in action and see the methodology in practice, etc. And then bye, thank you very much, good luck with transferring. So we have had experiences working with ministries of education, for example, where that is exactly the kind of program that supports the teachers and the teachers of teachers who come onto these courses. And, it allows them to take risks and implement once they're back in the country, and they don't feel alone in the process. They still have that community of practitioners and the support of the tutors throughout the process. So that's for one part of the question. The second part was, sorry, I kind of lost the second part. What was it, Tim? Your second question.
Yeah, I mean, is that something we love the idea of it, and we want it from a pedagogical perspective. It really works. Where is it something that is in demand though? Because we know that it works, but from the other side of things, how can we maybe influence that, or is that something that's coming from the partners that you work with overseas to say this is the setup, or is there well, why does it need to be that difficult? Why can't we just do it like this approach to things?
Yes, I think, as I say, if we really understand, there's a lot of teacher development and of very mixed quality. There's, a lot of teacher development that has absolutely no impact on practice, which is a waste of time, money for everybody concerned, from the commissioners, either ministers of education, etc., to the teachers themselves, who are spending a lot of, time and effort, the time poor in general teachers. So I think really anybody interested in developing professional development should look at what really is good quality teacher development and how it impacts. I would say, is there demand? Well, this is an expensive model. And we are at the moment, we are in a scenario where we do see funding cuts in education systems for teacher development. So is it sustainable? I don't know, but we can always look into supplementing that with more online and more blended, and there is absolutely no reason to think that it's less good quality. There's very high quality online provision as well. I think what matters really is this idea that the professional development courses link theory with practice, challenge participants' perspective, give them an insight into what is evidence-informed teaching, and sustain their attempts to implement what they have learned in the professional development courses when they go back to teaching. I think that model, or those features, if you like, of design are amenable to more than one model.
And where online might be a good supporter of that kind of model in the way that Mike, there's during the pandemic, we've seen an awful lot of training development offered for free, in online mostly. Do you think that's going to help the paid for teacher training as a business opportunity, or is there a risk or a danger there that people start expecting that things are free when they come at a cost?
It's a good question. I mean, so a year ago, we did it ourselves. We put together a sort of take your teaching online course that we offered for free as a response to the pandemic. And I think we had over 5,000 teachers take it. I mean, I personally don't see it as a threat. I mean, there's always been free products in the training sector. So whether it's publishers sort of offering product training or webinars, I think, as Silvana said, some of it's good quality, some of it's less so. But, for us, the key to effective training is having a great trainer, and they don't come for free. And I think the real benefit of doing a training course with a trainer, you get that personalized approach. You get the chance to work quite closely with another group of professionals, whether that's from working in your country, in your sector, or with teachers from across the world, and then you get all of that personalized feedback and assessment. So there's been a lot of it, definitely, in the last year. We've seen an awful lot, but I don't see it as having a negative impact on the sort of need for paid training.
Mark, you've come to you from your perspective at Department for International Trade. There is this obvious hole, Eleanor described it as, where Erasmus Plus once was, and where programs like Tempus are. The reason there's been such an enthusiastic response is because it's starting to look at how government to government and the ministry can get involved. And how does the British government and Department for International Trade support that idea of teacher training offer that the UK is able to offer in a sustainable way beyond Erasmus Plus on a bilateral or other arrangements?
Well, there's a couple of points to that. The first thing is in terms of how we would promote the UK offer. So teacher training is very much an element of the UK education offer that we promote, particularly within ELT, but also within schools, colleges, universities. So it's a big export area. There's a lot of organizations out there doing great work on various projects around the world. So we promote it in terms of the expertise that we've built up in the UK over a large number of years, the high volume of students that have come to the UK and teachers that have come to the UK that we have trained, the academic research that goes on in the UK, and the the developing approaches to methodology and these sorts of things. So we base it on the expertise that we have, that we can help support other countries on their journey. And when we work at a government to government level, quite often we find in countries that they have these ambitions to raise standards of English, and they know that teacher training is an important element of that, but they haven't really thought the whole process through in terms of where they need to start and what success would look like at the end, and all of the steps on that journey. So we would very much go in at the beginning, as we are doing with a couple of governments at the moment, with regards to an evidence-based approach, case studies of what we know has worked in various countries around the world, lessons that we've learned where things perhaps haven't worked so well. It would look at all areas in terms of the curriculum, the teacher training, whatever it might be. There are certainly going to be large-scale opportunities out there. The demand within the countries for them to raise proficiency of English is very high on the priority list. There's a lot of countries that have bilingual strategies, and these sorts of ambitions. That's where we're kind of positioning ourselves in terms of talking to them early. We're very often approached as one of the countries that they would come to for advice when they have this ambition. So we would talk to them early. We'd give them the evidence of what works, what the research would suggest they need to do. We'd help them plan their journey. We try and steer them where we can. Quite often ministries have very fixed ideas about what they want, and we try and steer them in the direction of what we know will work. But certainly going forward, we want to continue that, and we want to build on successes that we have. For example, with Hungary, with the Tempest scheme, when that's up and running and we can demonstrate the success there, we've got a great working model together with Hungary. That's a partnership that we can take to other countries and say, look at what Hungary has done. Look at the results that they're getting from this. How about we have some discussions about doing a similar thing? So that's kind of how we're building on it from the government perspective.
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, Mark raises an interesting question there, which is quite often one that's comes up with teacher training, which is that quite often there's a process of jumping to the end, which is that there needs methodology training, and these are all the things that are needed, and that there are steps at the beginning around proficiency or with language level, for example, that need to be addressed first. And so how do you see that in terms of the demand that comes into you? Do you find that teachers who are looking for those in-service trainings, that there's sometimes they need to come back a step, and that there's some language development that happens first? And how does it all work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the two go hand in hand, and you really have to take an integrated approach. You can't separate it into this is a language competence course and this is a teacher training course. You have to approach it together, and it really depends on the level of the trainers, both in terms of their teaching practice and in terms of their English language competence. And I mean, the prelim is a perfect example of that, because we're working with two countries where the language is very different. The language ability is very different in both of those cohorts. And the course design was still applicable in both contexts, despite the language level being so different. And I think you really just have to ensure that the course is designed around the needs of the teachers, and just react to where they are at the start of their journey. And as Silvana said, just make sure that it's sustained and sustainable, and that you're continuing to support them along the development of their teaching practice. So yeah, I think it has to be an integrated approach. You can't separate the two, and we're certainly seeing that more and more, that we have to integrate English language competence teaching within the teacher training courses that we offer.
I mean, Silvana, there does seem to be, you know, if you were a centre looking to get into this for to do in-service teacher training for the first time, or it's something that you've dabbled in a little bit, but now you see this as an opportunity, and there are programs that come up that like Tempus or like Prelim, which is great. We're getting more members who haven't done this sort of thing before into it. What kind of advice would you give them, though? What do they need to think about when they're entering into this space, maybe for the first time?
Yeah, I would say, as Ellie was saying, and as Mark was saying, language development courses for teachers are in high demand. So I would say to them, well, let's start thinking with those in mind, because for a language school that is used to teaching English as opposed to teaching teachers, it's an easier jump. Having said that, there are things that are similar and there are things that are different. You know, many countries have moved through education reforms to English as a medium of instruction, and as Mark was saying, without necessarily having sufficient teachers with the necessary proficiency in English to teach English as a medium of instruction. So the focus here is not just good old general English. It's about building those teachers' competency and confidence to teach through the medium of English. So if you like, it's not just general English, but it's English for teaching, like a little bit of a special, you know, a special area, an area of specialism within English, and an ESP, if you like. And as Ellie was also saying, weave in the methodology. And this is, you know, the methodology. When those teachers are asked to teach through the medium of English, again, you're asking them to teach not just English, but to teach maths, potentially science, one or two or more subjects through the medium of English. So this is language development in the curriculum, which is different from English language teaching. So to consider things like, here there's a tandem of cognitive and linguistic demands at play when we're teaching learners through the medium of English. So for example, you can have a child who's fantastic at coding, but new to English, or you can have a child who's very good at English, but has zero beginner in coding. So how do we, you know, that the methodology that we need to prepare those teachers for is not just, you know, how to teach listening. It's about how do we teach English, in English and through English, and develop language proficiency while they're teaching subject lessons.
I'm glad that a couple of you have mentioned Prelim. I think it's because it's an interesting project for a couple of reasons, and just as by way of background for those that aren't familiar with Prelim, it was a project which was funded by British Council and run in partnership with British Council English UK and IATEFL, where we worked with ETAs, teaching associations in 20 different countries. And those teaching associations worked with a partner school in the UK, so an accredited school in the UK, and in partnership to develop a remote learning program, which was focused on language improvement primarily, on increasing confidence, as Silvana said, and also competence. That was delivered all online, obviously. The project ranged in size and scope from very intensive with small groups to less intensive with larger groups. There was a blend of synchronous and asynchronous learning and development that's gone on. We've had 20 different projects, which is really interesting. We've suddenly got this out of nowhere, this huge body of different programs to look at and learn from in terms of how they work. Mike, Niall have been involved very heavily as managing consultants on the project. What can we learn from the processes that schools have gone through and that the ETAs have gone through about developing these courses which are English for teaching? If we want, Silvana's just coined that phrase. I'm sure it's not a new one, but an idea of English for improving proficiency, but with the idea of weaving in some methodology. Because it seems to be something that is much needed around the world. What's your experience been?
Yeah, and I mean, I should say it's been places like Bell and IH have been doing the real work. We've sort of had a coordinating role, but it's been really interesting for us to see how the projects have developed, and also how diverse they've been. I think you said it, Tim, and Silvana said it. I mean, the whole ethos behind this is to support teachers in gaining confidence. I have a certain level of Italian, and I've been teaching for 20 years, but if somebody asked me to deliver a lesson in Italian, then I think I would run a mile. So I think it's been really interesting to see how effective they've been. And also, I think it's that element of partnership, so that, we aren't coming in saying we're the UK experts, this is how you do it. It's been a partnership between a UK school and the local association, and really a lot of listening and understanding of the reality that teachers face in those localities. And I'm sure they're just 20 completely different projects, and I think Mark's mentioned it already. That's how we can have the impact, by trying our best to understand that the local needs and the local reality.
Thanks, Timea. If I come to you on that, because with this Tempus project coming up, and with people starting to plan towards the teacher development, perhaps you could say something about those unique challenges that Hungarian teachers face, and what kind of support they need in that program, so that centres can start planning to deliver the right kind of program for the local needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, there's one huge question, unfortunately, which is motivation. So we see that teachers need motivation, how to deal with their pupils during the class. So we would like to teach them foundation courses like methodology, learners with special needs, and ESP. So because we aim at a wider audience, like teachers teaching in vocational schools, secondary schools, and elementary, we are going to have compulsory courses and some elective courses. So basically, the elective courses will be offered for special age groups or teachers teaching in special schools. We have young learners, but we also have like exam preparation for those who would like to study for their school leaving exam. So during these 40 hours of foundation courses, these are the main courses we are aiming at. And when they are going to be in the UK, we would like to what we would like them to focus on is like English for teachers, so how to express themselves, how to be more confident in the classroom, and also how to give instructions, but some other skills like argumentation, presentation skills, also writing skills, and like oral communication. So these are, I think, all topics that can be found in any teacher training, or even in any exam preparatory courses that you aim at. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about methodology, we would like them to dwell into the special things you can offer, like CLIL, because we don't have that in Hungary, or ESP courses, because we don't have them in Hungary. And if they teach in bilingual schools, they need it. We have a lot of bilingual schools in Hungary, and those teachers don't really get special teacher training in Hungary. So I would say these are the most important things we are looking at. Nothing special.
I think it is, and I think it comes back, you've listed quite a large amount of things to cover in a 2-week period, and I think it comes back to the point Silvana made at the beginning about having expectations correct for a program of 2 weeks, and then where you can continue to supplement that development over a longer period of time when they go back into their practice. That's a kind of an important part of the project, and an important part of all development. And I'd like to move on just to, in the last few 10-15 minutes, to talk a little bit about CELTA programs, Delta programs, back into the idea of those entering our profession to teach. Has any, Eleanor, you do a lot of these at International House in London. Have you seen any noticeable changes in the demand for professional courses? Are UK professionals looking to change into this because they see the need for it? Is there international changes? Have you seen any particular changes over the last couple of years?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, particularly last year, we trained more CELTA trainees than we have in many, many years, which, you know, considering we were closed for 75% of the year is pretty incredible. And you know, a huge driver of that has been Cambridge approving the online CELTA, which has meant that international teachers have been able to get a CELTA from the UK without, you know, the barrier of the airfare and accommodation. So we've definitely seen a huge increase in CELTA trainees generally, particularly with international students. And you know, also in the UK, the number of UK based teachers wanting the qualification has been quite astounding. In terms of the demographic, I wouldn't say that it's particularly changed. I mean, we have a huge variety of teachers from all walks of life. You know, there's some people who are brand new to teaching, who just want to, you know, explore it. There are some looking for a career change. Some want to teach and travel. Obviously, last year those individuals were a bit disappointed, but a few of them did get to their destination in the end. Although I think they're now stuck there. But we also had, you know, more experienced teachers who just wanted the qualification or who wanted to improve their teaching practice in general. So it's such a wide variety of individuals doing the CELTA. There's no one particular demographic.
Yeah, and Jane is just mentioned in the comments. She's absolutely right to talk about TESOL as well. I apologize for not including that in my original question. I will include it in this one though, Silvana. The Cert TESOL, Trinity Cert TESOL, the Cambridge CELTA, more increased demand, increased international demand. Are they courses that are they courses that are right at the moment? Do they need development? Do they need change? Are we in a position where we're offering the right kind of programs? I will ask the question. And having done one myself at International House London, I add that caveat.
Interesting you asked me that. Yes, I think this is my opinion. I think the certificate courses do need to develop more. They do need to reflect their more diverse candidature. There are many CELTA centers in the world where 50 to 100% of candidates are regularly or exclusively speakers of other languages, and they're increasingly in the UK. We are seeing that diversification of candidature. And I was reading an article not that long ago written by somebody, Jamie King, from the IH in the IH World newsletter, and he was saying, how does a third course meet the needs of what he calls non-native speakers, a term that I don't like, and their context? Is there too much that is inherently biased, outdated, or prescriptive in a certificate course when applied to a broader variety of contexts? And he says, I believe there is, and so do I. For example, I think we need to take more into account the prior knowledge about languages that different candidates bring. If you think about the origin of those certificate courses, they were originally designed in the private school sector for the Brit who wanted to travel abroad. This is no longer, you know, just the exclusive case or the majority of the cases of candidates. And therefore, what we see is, for example, people coming from Hungary or, you know, wherever in the world, where a lot of the teachers have a very good knowledge of grammar, thank you very much. And the assumption of many of the certificate courses is we need to teach them from scratch how to understand, you know, grammar. So what I would suggest is we need to do more differentiation here. And it is not, at the moment, it's kind of left to the centers to decide whether they want to do that or not. But I think increasingly, you know, the syllabuses have got to look at this difference in the prior knowledge and experience that different types of teachers coming from different backgrounds and having had different experiences bring to the table, and offer sort of more maybe accreditation of prior learning for certain things, and looking at what else they need to be learning, and to basically differentiate provision accordingly. And online is a wonderful opportunity to increase that differentiation, for example. So that's one thing. The other thing that I would say it needs to look more at is the impact of the students' own languages, not necessarily. There's been a lot of hangover still from the monolingual bias. We're all native speakers. Well, not me, but, they're all native speakers, and it's all about speaking only in English, and it's you have seen some changes. We have seen some changes in the syllabuses and in the way it's being approached, but there needs to be more change, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of knowledge of languages as an asset rather than a valuable resource. And I want to see much more of that in certificate programs. How can we actually use the languages that both candidates and learners know to learn as a successful tool to learn other languages, and to create bilingual and plurilingual speakers rather than failed native speakers of English.
Mm. Mm. Mike, do you want to come in on that point? I think it's a really interesting one, because these programs, as well as being an integral part of what we do as an industry and providing the right kind of teachers for the industry, are also an important export for the UK often. And as has been mentioned, with these programs being available more online, an increasingly important export possibility and business opportunity for schools. So do you feel that there needs to be changes approached in the approach to certificate courses?
I agree with a lot of what Silvana said. I still think I did the Trinity, and I'm still amazed at how much was crammed into my head in the space of 4 weeks. So I think that there are a lot of benefits to be had. But I used to work for International House in Milan, and it was exactly the situation that Silvana described. It was all local Italians on the course, and we had to adjust it accordingly. Just interesting on this point, at Nile, we took the decision not to offer the CELTA online because we had a concern that the certification didn't specify that the teaching practice had been done online, and so we had some concerns about how employers would respond to that certificate, and whether the implication is that if you'd done your teaching practice on Zoom, that it would be the same as delivering it in a classroom. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think we would like to see that specified on the certificate.
Mm-hmm. We actually have a different opinion there, because we were very happy with Cambridge's decision not to specify on the certification that it was an online course. And I think it would kind of devalue the certificate if they made the decision to do that. And I think we were very pleasantly surprised actually by how well the CELTA transitioned to online, and that's certainly the feedback, and that wasn't what we expected, I have to say. So I totally understand that initial concern and skepticism, but that was something that our trainers and teachers and the trainees didn't expect, but certainly the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, and that the skills that you learn on the online CELTA are absolutely applicable to a face-to-face classroom. And I also think that we have to, when we're running the CELTA, we have to remember that we're preparing teachers to be employable, and more and more they will be expected to teach online. So we have to ensure that that is a key part of the CELTA going forward, or the Trinity TESOL, because that is the reality of and the future of teaching, and that they will be expected to do some online teaching as well. So I think how we develop the certificate courses have to be quite tightly aligned with how we see that the future of teaching developing. And I'd also say, in terms of do the certificate courses need developing? Although the criteria set by Cambridge, as Silvana said, it's really up to the centre's discretion to amend the input and the the design of the course and the content and the way that it's delivered. And so it's really down to the trainer's expertise in the teacher training institution to make sure that the needs of that particular cohort are met. And I absolutely agree with Silvana's points that we need to take into account the more international context of the trainees. And that is something that I know a lot of teacher training institutions are very aware of and working hard to do on their courses. It's extremely important. Yeah,
and I mean, I suppose as a follow-up to that on the certificate courses, the other question that I had and I would caveat this as being not a teacher trainer or expert in teaching methodology, but the reality of the context in which most trainee teachers go in to teach now, particularly if they go to do so abroad, is that they usually end up, at least initially, teaching young learners. And our certificate courses, correct me if I'm wrong, or have a focus and usually have a teaching practice around adult students. Is that something that needs looking at again as we look at this product and its applicability around the world as a key export of the UK ELT sector, or is that totally off the mark? And if so, then please do tell me.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And generally, the last week of our CELTA courses, we include topics like that, such as teaching young learners, teaching business English, and generally that there is a bigger focus on teaching YL, because that is the reality of the context that a lot of teachers are going to go on to be in. But yeah, the reality is that it's an initial kind of survival qualification to equip them with the practical skills and techniques for the first few years of teaching. But it's it should be the first qualification in many that teachers who are serious about their craft undertake, one of which could be a YL course, for example.
Yeah, perhaps it's good to often to frame it in that sense, and rather than to talk about it as the finished product, which can be a mistake we can make in our marketing as an industry sometimes, that there is continuous professional development. Silvana, is that something that you've talked about, the context of which the background of the teachers coming onto the program, but also the context of which they go on and teach? Is there anything you'd like to say on that?
Yes. Yes, you can, for example, looking at the certificate course, you can do a session on teaching YL, but it's not the same as doing teaching practice with young learners. So ideally, we know that the certificate course is for adults, and there used to be a YL extension, for example. And yes, there are pedagogies and strategies and methodologies that you could kind of apply, but it is a different beast. And the best thing, I think, ideally, the best thing is to start from scratch with different qualifications and have a completely different one for children. But you can see why, market-wise, it might not be desirable.
I think we're shaking some trees late in the day at the first day of StudyWorld. Just one more question I wanted to ask Mark. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Is about this idea of where the prelims worked really well, to come back to that, was that we got smaller centres involved in this. So how, and teacher training became, the whole process became something where the community of practice was very important, that was delivered and managed by Niall, but brought together 17, 18 English UK members who then came together. They learnt together on the process, and it was although there were 20 different projects, there was a feeling that this was an industry working together to solve a problem or help with an issue. We've spoken a lot before, and maybe you could share with the audience, how do you feel that the industry needs to adapt and develop so that we work together more, bringing in all the different expertise from across the sector to support the very, very complex needs that some of these larger institutions, ministries of education, etc., are faced around the world?
Tim, we've had this conversation many times. It's crucial. The prelim is a great example of how different organisations are coming together. I think the British Council set it up very well. When I was involved in the initial discussions with the British Council on it, and it was the intention from the outset that the pots of funding would be smaller pots of funding to encourage more providers and smaller providers to be able to get involved in the project, which is a great model, and we will encourage the British Council to take similar approaches in the future. Certainly the challenges around teacher training, they're too large for any one organization to tackle. Large organizations have tried to tackle these types of challenges, and they have not really succeeded or met the expectations that that were set at the beginning. It does involve coordination from a range of different organizations across the ELT sector. So whether that's on the curriculum development side, on the assessment, whatever it might be, and the teacher training side, of course, that you've got to come together to do it. Where I see these opportunities happening, when they will get opened up, I want them to be opened up in a similar manner. With prelim, we're very lucky that the British Council got FCDO funding for that, and hopefully funding will continue to come through for other projects. For other types of projects, it's going to be the governments in these countries paying for it themselves. Really what we need is just for a similar approach where we have a organization that can take care of the management side of it, a range of organizations that are involved in the consultancy side of it, the flipped, rather than we're telling organizations in the UK what we want them to do, we're approaching organizations in the UK, giving them the problem and the challenges and asking what they can do. So there's a really good structure in that, and also in other projects that British Council have done, like the English Connects project, for example, which are working. And there are other organisations other than the council that can step in at that management role. NALA are doing a great job with the prelim, for example. There are other organisations that can open these opportunities up and then get a range of delivery partners in to do the work on the ground. And it can be organisations of any sort of size. It doesn't matter, you know, whatever size your school is. You've got teachers who I'm sure are absolutely chomping at the bit to get on a plane and get out to another country and do a bit of teacher training, or to, you know, to have a great audience on Zoom and to deliver some teacher training and do something a bit different from what they might normally do. So I'd encourage everybody to get together, and I think there's lots of ways that they can work together with large organizations. So fingers crossed, there'll be more of these opportunities coming in the future.
Yeah, and I think that was echoed in the comment section and the questions as well about the importance of projects like prelim. And you know, I think with Tempus, you know, thank you to Mayor for joining us. We come back full circle to that, and this opportunity that's going to be there for British Council accredited centres and for English UK members in the next, hopefully a small opportunity this summer and then a larger opportunity next summer, is that learning we've had from prelim around the community of practice, the sharing what's working and how the program needs to be developed and what's working and what's not working. We take that forward as a membership, so that we deliver the best possible product to meet the needs of large-scale projects like Tempus and others that come up, to show that as an industry and as a sector, we do have a collaborative approach to solve these problems and to give solutions which work. And I think that's for me a really positive note to end today's seminars on. It's been fantastic that you've joined us and others have volunteered your time to come share your experience. No industry like it, that we were able to do that. Answer challenging questions, ask challenging questions of each other, share our experience and do so in a way that's collaborative, problem solving. It's great to be a part of it, and thank you all for your time. Lots of good comments about a great panel. Totally agree. It's been a pleasure spending my 45 minutes with you, and I hope to see you all again at another event, either in person or online, very, very soon. So thanks to everybody. Just to the participants out there, meetings do start tomorrow morning, nice and bright and early. The team will be online to support you with any technical challenges and issues you might have. Just find us on the chat bot. We'll be there from 6:30. helping you through the day as you meet with partners and discuss the future, which we hope is brighter than the previous 12 months. I think we can all agree on that. So good evening to everybody, and thank you for your time.